This is Morning Edition from NPR. I'm Joe Deacon with WCBU Reports. Anxious, uncertain, fearful. These are just a few of the emotions Peoria's unsheltered residents and advocacy groups are feeling in the aftermath of the city's recently approved public encampment ban. Seth Phillips has been living on the streets of Peoria for just over a year. He calls the ordinance, with fines and possible jail time as penalties, ridiculous.
I suffered a head injury, lost my job, my house, and pretty much everything that I had. And I've been on the street bouncing around from place to place since then. I usually camp whenever shelter is available. I do use the shelters, but right now I'm currently staying in a tent.
Phillips says many of the people living in the camps are in circumstances much like his, something the people backing the ordinance don't understand.
It's not something that they decided for themselves. They didn't decide one day that I want to go be homeless and then deal with this and that. I don't think I've ever met a person who said that in my life. Yeah, I want to be homeless, not have a job, not have an income, not have a place to lay my head at night. So I'm constantly sleeping on benches, bridges, rocks, grass, wet spot, wherever. There's no fun in it at all.
Peoria became the largest city in Illinois with a public camping ban 2 weeks ago when the city council passed the ordinance on a 6-5 vote. City staff said it would be 30 days before they could begin clearing campsites. Mayor Rita Ali is not signing the measure, although that action is a symbolic gesture since she doesn't have veto power. Chris Schaffner, the executive director of the nonprofit Jolt Foundation, says the ban is short-sighted.
If they're going to pass an ordinance that is going to close these encampments and ban public camping on city property, then they have to have a robust system to get these people connected to, and we just don't have that. When you look at the number of shelter beds and available housing units and the need, there's a massive disparity there. We are well short of that mark, and we're not going to fix that in 30 days. So to enact such a punitive criminalizing of these folks without having an alternative is draconian.
Schaffner says community nonprofits started meeting about what they can do next to help those affected immediately after the ban's passage. Kate Green is the executive director of the Home for All Continuum of Care.
When these ordinances are enacted, and we've seen this in other communities, is that it displaces the problem, and it can go to unintended places like doorsteps and stoops and in places where weren't intended in the first place either. So I think there's going to be real friction in terms of the enforcement of this ordinance and for people who are just trying to survive.
Green says there's around 600 people in their multi-county system who are seeking permanent housing assistance. Peoria city officials estimate there's around 40 to 50 people staying at downtown campsites along Interstate 74. But that figure could be low. Casey Bernard, the co-founder of Lula Peoria and outreach director for Jolt, says it's as high as 90. She says the people she works with are in despair.
No matter how many times you throw away someone's tent, fine them or jail them, it doesn't give them a home. It doesn't make them not homeless. These are humans. These are Peoria's most vulnerable citizens.
Community Development Director Joe Doolin says the city is working with the community groups to get as many campsite residents as possible housed before enforcement starts. City Attorney Patrick Hayes says the ordinance is modeled after the state's trespassing law that Peoria already applies in many cases. Hayes says in his time with the city, it's never reached a point where someone is jailed. Peoria County Sheriff Chris Watkins says it's too soon to know what kind of impact this may have on the jail. With the ban going into effect just before the start of winter, Seth Phillips fears the consequences could be dire.
Not everybody's going to make it, I don't think. They're either going to end up in jail or they're going to end up taking their own lives because they've already got the world on their shoulders, and it's hard. It's hard, and just to have the mental strength to keep going like tomorrow's another day, not everybody's going to make it, man.
Amid the uncertainty created by the ban, Chris Schaffner says Jolt and the other nonprofits will keep doing all they can to help Peoria's unsheltered residents. For WCBU, I'm Joe Deacon.